Hey, and welcome to another TRP Tech Talk. I'm Dave, and today I'm going to show you how to do a piston massage. Now, a piston massage is a pretty simple procedure. We're trying to get the bubbles and stuff and air out of the caliper. Maybe it's up in the lever or the hose, but in this particular case, we're going to be focusing mainly on the caliper. So why would you need one? Well, if you have a soft lever, let's say after a bleed or even maybe an install, that's a sign that there still could be some air in the system. Particularly after a bleed, if you maybe have introduced some by using the bleed port plug at the caliper and there's still some residual air down there, that could be a cause. And then also uneven piston movement. So let's say one side moves and the other side doesn't, or we got like a lazy piston or two. That's typically a key sign that there's some air behind that piston. What's going on is you compress the lever, and instead of the fluid pushing those pistons, it's got air behind it and the air compresses and the piston doesn't move. Now, kind of on the opposite side of that is if you have pistons that are dragging. Let's say after a long descent, the system's really hot and the air behind those pistons is now expanded, and that piston is pushing against the pad, pushing against your rotor, causing those pads and rotors to kind of constantly drag until the system cools off. So in that case, we kind of all lead to that there's air in that caliper, there's air somewhere in that system, let's get it out. But we've already done a bleed maybe, so we don't want to go back and do bleed after bleed after bleed. We really want to focus on trying to get the system out, the air out, like from the caliper and up. That's where the air wants to go due to buoyancy, right? To do this, it's fairly simple and it doesn't take a ton of tools. As you can see, taking off my wheel per manufacturer recommendations. Got some gloves on. So first things first is we're gonna take my pads out, and I'm just gonna remove a little pad retaining pin clip there. Set that aside, it's easy to lose. And we're gonna remove pad retaining pin. Not quite as easy to lose, but still set that aside. And just pull those pads out from the back. We're gonna put these in a safe place so they don't get contamination or anything. And then I'm gonna go ahead and take my dummy pads, stick those in, and we're gonna take that pad retaining pin. I'm gonna leave the clip alone because I don't really need it, and I'm just gonna gently put those in. I don't need any torque or anything, I'm just super gentle. Okay, next is going to be leveling out the lever. So T25. I'm gonna make this kind of level. So the bleed port is the highest point. Doesn't have to be like perfectly level, but we know that bleed port is where we need to be the highest point. I'm gonna remove the bleed port plug. That's using my T15. Got that set aside, awesome. Just put that over here. Now I'm gonna fill up my tube of fluid. So we're gonna take the adapter actually off of that so I can get a little deeper in there. And then we're gonna open that, take out the plug, dip that in, and then we can just put that plug back in and that'll suck up a nice amount of fluid. Have a little rag ready so you can kind of wipe that off. And I can even turn that upside down, install that guy, and put that right onto the reservoir bleed port plug. Now that that's on, make sure to take off your little plug to allow the fluid just to move up and down. There's no vacuum, a little bit more easily. So next thing we want to do before we get started is our pad adjustment dial. If you've got the EVO Pros, the pad adjustment dial is the master cylinder piston adjustment dial. So we're going to back that counterclockwise all the way out so it's fully backed out. So counterclockwise, looking at this way. That's going to ensure that master cylinder piston's all the way back. Of course, this step isn't needed on a DHR EVO or a Trail EVO or the EVO X, for example. That's just going to be the starting position for any time you bleed or maintenance the EVO Pro. I'm going to take pad spreader, and the first pull, I want you to pay attention. So I'm going to get this in between the pads, kind of hold it with 2 fingers. It's actually kind of floating between my fingers. I'm not pushing or pulling on this at all. I'm going to get a handful of lever. I'm going to watch these pads and I'll see which one, if any, moves first or which ones are being lazy. Now I actually got a lazy one on the inboard side here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold this take this, 2 fingers, I'm gonna pull it, holding, if I do it this way, I'm gonna hold it like that, holding those 2 pistons back. In this case, I've got the inboard ones that aren't moving, the outboard ones are moving. So I'm gonna hold this 2 outboard ones that are moving, so I can actually push the ones that aren't moving, encourage those guys to pop out and get some of that fluid behind them. Then I can push them back, and this is a really easy tool to use. You just kind of pry it back and forth, and it pushes your pistons back. Got the dummy pads, I'm not worrying about damaging anything. I'm gonna do the same thing. I give it a little bit of slack, and let the pistons do themselves. Inboard side is moving a little bit better already, so this is great. So I'm gonna hold that outboard side again, let those guys work their way out. This is a great way to lube the seals, exercise the pistons. We're doing a lot of things all at once. And I can go ahead and move those guys back. And then you'll see here, you'll see this fluid. It'll move up and down as I do it, of course, because I'm moving fluid back and forth through the system. They're moving more even than they were. I think I've got to do this a little bit more. Now, you also might notice when you do this, that some bubbles come out. So we're kind of doing a lever purge at the same time as we're doing a piston massage, at the same time we're kind of doing a piston purge. But we're really taking a lot of steps to move the air out of the system without needing to do a whole new bleed, attach a syringe, potentially introduce air to the caliper. We're doing a lot of things all at once to get these systems to perform their best. The amount of times you need to do this isn't set. You could do it 2 or 3 times. You might probably need to do a little more. You could do 10 or 15. You could do this for a long time, probably overdo it. It probably won't hurt the system if you do, but we want to make sure that we're just addressing which one of our problems. Are we having a dragging piston? Are we having an uneven pad movement? Or are we having just a soft lever feel? Do it until you've solved that problem. And it's almost guaranteed. A leak is really evident. You'll see fluid coming out of the caliper profusely or something. Residual fluid around the bleed port, that's gonna happen. The bleed port's plugged at the bottom of the screw, not along the threads. So you could have some residual oil there, collect some dust. It's not a sign of leak, clean that off. And the other thing that's really, really good about something like that disc brake cleaner is it's gonna get in there, it's gonna penetrate, and it's gonna get rid of the oils, but not get into the system, of course, so that dust and stuff won't stick to it. So one last time, these are getting pretty good. This is a pretty new brake, pretty new system. I'm gonna give it one more try here, because I'm looking good. And it was feeling pretty firm, to be honest, at the lever already, so. Okay, I'm gonna reset these pistons. So now we're gonna put this thing all back together, kind of reverse process. First things first, we're gonna take our plug and put that into our tube of fluid, and we can go ahead and remove tube of fluid. Awesome. And we'll go back, use T15. I'll go ahead and adjust my lever position once I get the bike back on the ground so I can kind of get that right angle. Now we're just gonna go back and remove our brake pads. These are those dummy pads, so we're gonna put that pad retaining pin aside again, push these out. Now if you did get any fluid on your gloves, you may want to change these or take them off before you install your new pads. Sandwich the spring in between the pads, stick them in through the back. Pad retaining pin, 3mm Allen. Snug that down. It doesn't need to be too crazy tight. I was just using the short end of the 3mm Allen. We also have the pad retaining pin clip as another layer of added safety. Now, Next step really is just install my wheel. It should be centered. I may need to go and readjust or center the caliper with these two 5mm Allens. We'll show you how to do that in the bleed and the install video. Really easy way to do those. But it should be really centered. Other than that, we're pretty much buttoned up. My system seems to be feeling good. You will initially feel a long lever pull the first or second time you pull that brake lever. The pistons have been fully retracted in their housing, so we're gonna need to kind of acclimate them to my rotor's width. So they're gonna go kind of boom, boom, as if the pads are wearing out or something, and they'll hit that rotor, and that's where you're gonna get that solid feeling. So just keep in mind that the first pull, or maybe 2 or 3, is gonna be kind of soft until you hit that rotor and hit that hard stop. All right, there you have it. That wraps it up. I do hope this helps and get these brakes to the highest performance because they are fantastic products, and we are always here to help if you need. So if there is anything you want or questions on this video, feel free to drop a comment or hit up our customer service team. And as always, if this video was helpful, drop a like. And if you want more content like this, go ahead and subscribe, and I'll catch you next time.